welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a serious look at something you're probably using right now, shoes.
Yeah, we're really diving into what makes them comfortable, how you can even tell if they're well-made.
Right, and tackling that big question. Are expensive shoes actually worth it?
And we're grounding all this in what real people are saying, their actual experiences buying footwear.
So to do that, we've gathered quite a bit of material for this deep dive.
We've got tips straight from board-certified podiatrists, stuff featured in Real Simple,
Okay.
and detailed guides on spotting quality, like from Community Made and Salon Privé.
Oh, interesting.
And then there's the, let's say, very candid online discussions, Reddit, for instance, people sharing their hits and, well, their misses,
Yeah.
especially with big retailers like Costco.
Right. Oh, so our goal here, our mission in this deep dive is really to cut through all that noise, the marketing, the opinions, and give you clear, really actionable insights right from these sources. We want you to feel empowered to find the best shoes for your needs, your feet.
Okay, so let's jump in. Before we even get to choosing, maybe we should start with why it even matters. Why invest the time, maybe the money, in comfortable, well-made shoes?
Good point. The podiatrists we looked at, they were really clear on this. It's way more than just avoiding a little pinch here and there.
Definitely. They talk about the immediate stuff first, right? Blisters, sores, that muscle fatigue you feel after a long day.
Ugh, yeah. Or tendinitis, even stress fractures they mentioned.
Exactly. Wear the wrong shoes, maybe for the wrong activity, or just for too long, your feet will let you know pretty fast.
And it's not just the short-term pain, is it?
No, that's the thing. Those immediate issues can kind of snowball. The experts highlighted the long-term problems.
Yeah.
Foot deformities, chronic tendinitis, and that really common one, plantar fasciitis.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one. Painful.
Very. And they link it back to consistently wearing shoes that just don't fit right or aren't built well.
So it's really not just about feeling good now or liking how they look. It's genuinely about your physical health long-term, avoiding chronic pain.
Absolutely. A good pair of shoes. It's more than just an accessory. It really can be an investment in your overall well-being.
Okay, so that really lands the importance. Which brings us to the practical part. What makes a shoe comfortable? The podiatrists had some really specific, useful tips.
They did. Stuff that cuts through the usual marketing fluff.
Okay, here's one that honestly surprised me a bit. Measure your feet yearly.
Yearly. Yeah, who does that after, like childhood?
Exactly. But they say your foot size, even the structure, can change as an adult.
Right. Things like age, apparently you lose collagen, ligaments stretch, weight changes, pregnancy.
Makes sense.
Existing foot issues like bunions or hammer toes or even past injuries or surgeries, it all adds up.
So your size 10 years ago might not be your size now.
Probably isn't. And tied right into that is width. This came up a lot.
Okay.
Shoes that are too narrow, well, that's kind of obvious. Pain, cramped toes, bunions developing or getting worse.
Right.
But interestingly, shoes that are too wide can also cause problems. Your foot doesn't have enough support. It slides around.
Ah, leading to blisters maybe.
Exactly. Blisters, instability. It's finding that sweet spot.
Another smart tip they gave? Shop for shoes later in the day. At the end of the day.
Yeah, why is that again?
Because your feet naturally swell throughout the day. They're usually at their largest in the evening.
Ah, okay. So if they fit comfortably then.
They're likely to feel good all day long. Try them on first thing in the morning. You might buy something that feels fine then, but gets painfully tight by afternoon.
Clever. Okay, what about support? Arch support.
Crucial, but not one size fits all. The podiatrist mentioned if you have high arches, sometimes a little bit of a heel lift can help.
Okay.
And if you have flat feet, you really need good, solid arch support built in.
And if the shoe itself doesn't quite cut it?
Don't forget inserts. They said good orthotics or even over-the-counter inserts can make a huge difference.
Got it. And toes.
Oh yeah, give your toes room. This was a big one. They really emphasized a wide or maybe a square toe box.
To avoid cramping them up.
Exactly, because cramped toes, that's the fast track to corns, calluses, bunions again, hammer toes, even nerve pain, like Morton's neuroma.
Yikes. So even with pointy shoes.
Even then, they had a specific tip. Leave about ½ inch of space between your longest toe and the very tip of the shoe.
½ inch? Wow, that feels like a lot for a pointy shoe.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive for style maybe, but they stressed it for health.
Okay. Cushioning also came up, right? Shock absorption.
Definitely. Extra cushion helps protect your joints, knees, hips, back from impact.
Which reduces pain, but also lowers the risk of those conditions like plantar fasciitis and tendonitis.
So generally, more cushion is better for everyday comfort and protection.
Makes sense. And the obvious one, but always worth saying.
Use the right tool for the job.
Basically, yeah. Use the right shoe for the activity. If you're playing tennis or basketball, something with side-to-side movement, you need ankle support.
Right. Weightlifting. Flat, rigid soles for stability. Not squishy running shoes.
Exactly. Hiking requires durability, good traction, maybe ankle support depending on the terrain.
And they even clarified walking versus running shoes. I always wondered about that.
Yeah, they said walking shoes are typically lighter, more flexible through the ball of the foot.
Whereas running shoes need much more cushioning, especially in the heel, to handle that higher impact.
Right. Now, what about that whole breaking in period?
Ah, yes. The experts, they pretty much shot that down.
Really? No breaking in?
Their advice was really firm. If a shoe pinches or cramps your toes or rubs anywhere when you first try it on in the store.
It's probably not going to get better.
Exactly. It's unlikely to magically become comfortable. Find shoes that feel good right away. That's the key test.
Wow, that's actually a really useful rule of thumb. Takes the guesswork out.
It does. Okay, so that covers comfort and foot health really well. But comfort's only part of it, isn't it? You also want shoes that, last.
Right. They need to hold up. So let's shift a bit and talk about quality. What makes a shoe high quality? How do you spot good craftsmanship beyond just the price tag?
The sources that focused on this, like Community Made and Salon Privé, they really zeroed in on construction methods.
Okay. Like how it's put together.
Yeah. The most basic difference is between shoes that are just glued.
Which tend to fall apart faster, right?
Generally, yes. Much shorter lifespan compared to shoes that are stitched.
And within stitching, there are different kinds.
They mentioned Blake stitching. That's a single stitch going through the insole, the upper, and the outsole.
Okay, what's the effect of that?
It makes the shoe more flexible, which some people like. But the downside is it's less water resistant.
Can you resole them?
You can, but apparently it often needs special machinery, so it might be harder to find someone to do it.
Gotcha. Then there's the other big one, Goodyear welting.
Yes. That's often called the, gold standard for durable shoes.
How does that work?
So the upper part of the shoe is stitched to a strip of leather or rubber. That's the welt. And then the welt is stitched to the sole.
Ah, so it's like a two-level stitch. More complex.
Exactly. It creates a really sturdy, more water-resistant shoe. And a big plus is that it's much easier to resole.
Which means they can last a really long time if you take care of them.
Definitely extends the life significantly. So construction is key. What about materials? Especially the main part, the upper.
Yeah, absolute critical. You want to avoid the obviously cheap stuff, thin suede that looks like it'll tear, really low-grade leather or anything that feels plasticky.
Right. Those just don't hold up. And they probably don't feel great either.
No. Good quality leather, especially what they call full-grain leather.
That's the top layer of the hide, right?
Exactly. It's the most durable, it breathes well, and it actually molds to your foot over time, getting more comfortable.
Okay, so how can you tell if it's good leather? Any quick checks?
The guides had a few tips. One is to bend the shoe. Good leather should winkle naturally.
Okay, like fine lines?
Yeah. Not crease rigidly or look like it might crack. Also, full grain often shows little natural variations or imperfections from the animal's life. It's not perfectly uniform.
Interesting. So perfection isn't always the goal here.
Not necessarily. And smell. Good leather has a distinct, natural, kind of earthy smell.
Not chemicals or plastic.
Right. If it smells like chemicals, it's probably heavily treated or lower grade.
They also mentioned some other types, like Scotch grain, calfskin, patent leather. Those are usually for more formal shoes.
Typically, yeah. Different looks, different properties, but quality still matters there too.
Okay, so check the construction method, check the upper material. What else?
Pay attention to the details, the overall finish. Are the seams strong and even? Is the stitching neat everywhere?
Check the sole attachment. Is it firm? Any gaps? No visible defects.
Exactly. And the upper itself shouldn't have weird wrinkles or puckering where it shouldn't. If there's a heel, make sure it sits straight and level, no gaps where it connects.
Good checklist.
Yeah.
What about the inside? The lining?
Oh, definitely check that. Ideally, you want leather or maybe suede lining.
Right hat.
It's softer, it breathes better than synthetic linings, and it just feels more comfortable against your foot. And run your hand inside, feel for any rough spots or seams sticking out that could rub.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Ah.
So we've got the podiatrist tips for comfort and health, And now these checks for quality construction and materials.
Right. Which leads us straight into that big debate.
Does all this quality, this craftsmanship, mean you have to spend a fortune? Are expensive shoes really worth the higher price tag?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or maybe the $300 question for shoes.
Huh, yeah. The sources that tackle this, like Claudia Lasota and Salon Privé, they definitely make a case for the value in higher priced shoes.
What's their main argument?
It often comes down to the craftsmanship. Skilled artisans, more handwork maybe, greater attention to all those little details we just talked about, things mass production might skip.
And the materials, presumably. Using that top-tier full-grain leather we mentioned, not the cheaper stuff.
Exactly. Those better materials are just inherently more durable. They last longer. So the argument is you're paying for longevity.
Years versus maybe just a season or two for a cheaper pair.
Right. And this is where that cost per wear idea comes in. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, explain that.
You basically take the price of the shoe
Yeah.
and divide it by the number of times you realistically think you'll wear it.
Ah, okay. So a $300 pair worn hundreds of times over 5 years might actually cost less per wear.
Yeah. Then a $50 pair you wear maybe 30 times before it falls apart in 6 months. It reframes the value away from just the upfront cost.
That's a really practical way to think about it. What about brands? Does the name automatically mean quality if it's expensive?
Well, branding definitely plays a role. Luxury brands obviously have prestige. They signal status or taste. There's value in that for some people.
But the sources were careful to add a warning, right?
Yes, definitely. They cautioned against buying just for the big name. Quality can actually vary quite a bit, even within expensive brands. Sometimes you're paying more for the marketing and image than the actual shoe construction.
So the best approach is what? Find a balance.
Pretty much. Combine maybe a reputable brand known for quality with your own critical eye. Use those checks we talked about, inspect the materials, the stitching, the finish yourself. Don't just trust the logo.
Trust but verify, basically.
Exactly. They also touched on the psychological side, how wearing expensive shoes can sometimes boost confidence. But again, that probably shouldn't be the main reason you buy them.
Right. Focus on comfort, quality, longevity first. Okay, this whole discussion about value, price, quality, it actually ties in perfectly with some of the real-world stuff we saw in those online discussions, specifically the Costco shoe situation.
Ah, yes, the Costco shoe files.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because the opinions there were really, really divided all over the place.
Yeah. What were the two camps?
Well, you had one group who were just huge fans, absolutely raving about the value. They found shoes and other clothing too, sometimes big brand names.
At those Costco prices.
Right. And they said this stuff was incredibly durable, lasted for years. For them, it was amazing value, no question.
Okay, that sounds like the Costco promise delivered.
But then you had this other significant group of users saying they've seen a real noticeable decline in quality recently across lots of items, including shoes.
A decline? How so?
They felt like the automatic trust they used to place in Costco, finding good quality stuff for them. That trust was kind of broken for them now.
Okay. Any specific examples about the shoes?
Yeah, people mention specific things like branded sneakers. Someone mentioned Adidas just not holding up nearly as long as they expected. Some describe the shoes feeling like, quote, payless quality.
Ouch. That's harsh.
It is. Others mentioned general flimsiness, stitching coming apart quickly. This wasn't just shoes either. They mentioned it for clothes, towels, other things too.
Did anyone have a theory why this might be happening? Why the perceived drop in quality?
There was a recurring theory, yeah.
Yeah.
The idea that maybe the big name brands you see at Costco, they listed a bunch like Eddie Bauer, North Face, Columbia, Adidas, plus Kirkland's own brand. Maybe they aren't the same exact items you'd buy elsewhere.
Like lower quality versions made specifically for warehouse clubs.
That was the speculation, that maybe corners get cut on materials or construction to meet Costco's specific price points. Someone estimated it might be like 85–90% of the quality for 30% of the price.
Is there proof of that? Or just user feeling?
Just user perception in these discussions based on their experiences. No hard proof presented there. But it's a pretty common theory you hear about outlet or big box versions of brands.
Interesting. Okay, quality aside, what else came up about Costco shoes?
A huge recurring complaint was about fit and sizing. Really inconsistent.
In what way?
People said sizes often run large. Difficulty finding certain common sizes, especially women's half sizes. 9.5 came up again and again and again.
Really? That's specific size?
Yeah, lots of frustration about no 9.5s. But also others like 5.5, 10.5, 11 were mentioned, and sometimes larger men's sizes too.
So finding the right fit is a challenge there.
A big one. according to these users. And remember our podiatrist tips. Someone specifically mentioned the Kirkland brand walking shoes having a narrow toe box.
Ah, so directly contradicting that advice about giving toes room.
Exactly. It really highlights how even if a shoe seems like a bargain based on price or brand.
If it doesn't fit right or the quality isn't what you expect, that value just disappears.
Totally. Now, the saving grace for many people, the thing that kept them shopping there despite these issues.
Let me guess. The return policy.
Bingo. Costco's famously liberal return policy. Many users said they basically rely on it now because the quality or fit feels like more of a gamble. It's almost part of the deal for them.
Wow. So they buy it, try it, and return if it's not right, knowing Costco will take it back.
Seems to be the strategy for some. And stepping back even further, a few users framed these quality concerns at Costco, not just as a Costco problem.
But as part of something bigger.
Yeah. They used some strong terms: enshittification, disposable economy, fast fashion, forced obsolescence.
Whoa.
The idea being that maybe across the board, not just at Costco, things aren't built to last like they used to,
Yeah.
driven by pressure for constant growth, maybe profit over longevity. They mentioned it happening with appliances, produce, all sorts of goods.
That is a pretty sobering perspective on modern consumerism.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've covered a lot. Podiatrist health advice, quality inspection tips, the whole expensive versus cheap debate, and these real-world user experiences, like with Costco. How do we pull this all together for you, the listener, when you're facing that wall of shoes next time?
Right. Let's synthesize. First and foremost, based on the experts, prioritize comfort and fit, period, for your foot health.
Use those podiatrist tips.
Yeah.
Get measured, think about width, shop later in the day, check arch support for your foot tuck, demand toe room, looks of cushioning.
And choose the right shoe for the activity. And crucially, remember that breaking in thing. They should feel good immediately. No excuses.
Okay, point 1, comfort and fit first. Point 2.
Be your own quality inspector. Don't just trust the brand or the price. Look at the shoe.
Right. Use those checks we talked about. Is it stitched well or just glued?
Right.
How does the leather feel and look when you bend it? Check the seams, the sole, the heel, the lining.
Those details reveal a lot about how long it's likely to last no matter where you bought it or how much it cost.
Okay, and point 3 relates to that value question and the Costco stories.
Exactly. Connect the dots. A high price doesn't guarantee quality or comfort. And a low price or a familiar brand name at a discount retailer doesn't guarantee value if the quality or fit is compromised.
So true value is finding that sweet spot, knowing what makes a good shoe, inspecting it carefully, and thinking about how long it might last, that cost per wear idea again.
It's about informed choices, not just reacting to price tags or logos.
And finally, maybe a practical tip inspired by those Costco shoppers.
Use the return policy if you need to. If you're buying somewhere with a good policy and you're just not sure about the quality or especially the fit once you get it home, don't hesitate.
It's like a safety net when things feel uncertain.
Exactly. So ultimately, this deep dive shows choosing the right shoes isn't simple, maybe. It's a real blend of understanding your own body, your feet.
Learning to recognize what actual quality looks like in terms of construction and materials.
And then thinking critically about value beyond just that initial sticker price.
And thinking about those user comments, that broader context they raised about, a potential trend towards more disposable products,
Yeah.
even from places we used to trust for value like Costco. It really leaves you with a question, doesn't it?
What's that?
Does this kind of shift, this perceived move towards planned obsolescence maybe,
Yeah.
change how we should even approach shopping? Not just for shoes, but for everything.
Like, how do we find things that are actually built to last in a world that sometimes feels like it's pushing disposability?
Yeah. And what power do we have just as individual consumers making choices to maybe push back against that trend or support the brand that are still focusing on durability?
That's definitely something to chew on next time you're out shopping for anything, not just shoes.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.